One of the most common questions that I get asked is, what's the most interesting thing that you found? And I want to talk a little bit about that this morning. Okay, perhaps you can leave a comment in the comment section, letting us know what's the most interesting thing you found. And I don't know, it's, for me, probably the most interesting thing I found was my first diamond, for my first diamond ring. I remember getting very excited about this. However, detecting at Strand Beach one day, I came across a piece of a gun, and at first I thought that maybe it was a cap gun, but it was just too heavy, and it very obviously very corroded, but very real. I mean, it's cap guns are normally quite light and pressed. This is definitely a solid piece of metal. Weighs, I don't know, 10, 11 ounces, nearly, a third of a kilo. So definitely feels very, very authentic to me, and I've been around firearms my whole life. So obviously a revolver of some kind. Judging by the length of the chamber, I would say 38, somewhere around there. And just so you can have a look at the weight in grams, over 300 grams, 322 grams, which is 11 ounces. Yeah. So finding a piece of a firearm is always interesting, and you never quite know what caused it to end up in the sea in the first place. Strand Beach has always yielded some interesting finds. This one was a Seiko watch that had been rolling around in the sea for a long time. I don't know how long, maybe 15, 20 years, and you can see it's quite badly corroded. All the buttons are worn down, and but the weird, and it had stopped. But the weird thing was, it's one of those old analog watches that if you shake it, it winds it up, and it started ticking again. If you look at the back of this watch, it says water resistant. So yeah, as a good testimony to the quality of Seiko watches, this thing is definitely water resistant. It remained in the water for like 15, 20 years, and not a drop of water got in and ruined the mechanism. Another interesting thing for me was I was on the west coast, somewhere near Bloberg one day, and there'd been a big swell and ripped away a lot of sand. I hadn't seen the beaches so denuded of sand for many, many years, and the sea had cut right into the dunes, and there was a huge big cut into the dunes, and on the beach, which is normally sandy, there was just rocks everywhere. And I didn't have a great machine in those days, and the machine I had didn't work. It was an old Russian military metal detector for finding landmines. I was still quite new at the metal detecting game, and my first real metal detector was a Garrett Sea Hunter Mark II, which served me very well. And I've just pulled the trigger and gone ahead and bought an Equinox 800 today, and hopefully I'll be able to take delivery of that when after this lockdown thing gets lifted. But coming back to the beach, I saw that there was a massive cut in the beach, and there was this dune going up in, and in the dune, I saw there were rows of black dots, okay? And as I went up to examine what these black dots were, I grabbed one and managed to pull it out of the sand. And it was one of these, a old hammered square nail from a Dutch East India Company vessel. Obviously, the planks that this had been nailed into had long since gone away, and all that was left were the metal nails. And I gathered a whole handful of these metal nails. There was some copper sheeting as well, and as well as some broken china, and that was always an indication of a Dutch vessel when it's got that blue china as well as the copper sheeting that goes onto the bottom of the, yeah. So that was quite interesting, and still want to go back there and detect that wreck. I know roughly where it is, although the sand has moved back in now. But it's always good to find these because you know they old. Yeah, that same wreck, I also found these old forks, which are again nothing like modern forks, and this old spoon. It's always nice to find old things like this. It's a lead soldier. Of course, finding things like GoPro cameras are always fun, particularly if one can track down the person who lost it. I've found a couple of GoPros, but so far I haven't been able to track down who the owners were. The last one was found rolling around in the sea at Muizenberg, was a Hero 4. It had been rolling around the bottom of the sea for about 3 months and had belonged to some Eastern European tourists who dropped it when they were surfing at Muizenberg. And they were speaking a language I didn't recognize, obviously long since left the country. Well, here's some B-roll footage of me trying to survive the lockdown on my own. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Really appreciate it. Stay safe.